welcome to the psychological warning. Right now, as you're watching this, someone in your life is testing you, and you have no idea. They're not doing it, obviously. They're not announcing it. They're just watching, observing, taking notes. And every response you give, every reaction you have, every word you say is being filed away, categorized, analyzed, and used to decide how they're going to treat you, what they're going to give you, what they're going to take from you, and whether you're worth their time, their respect, or their manipulation. You think people are just interacting with you, having conversations, being friendly, being normal, but that's not what's happening. What's actually happening is much darker, much more calculated. And by the time you realize it, the test is over, and you've already shown them everything they needed to see. Let me tell you about a woman named Jessica. Jessica worked at a mid-sized company. She was good at her job, reliable, competent. His name was David, and David had a very specific way of managing people. He tested them, not with formal evaluations, not with performance reviews, with invisible tests. Tests Jessica didn't even know she was taking. It started small. David would send her an email late at night. Nothing urgent, just a question about a project. And Jessica, being the dedicated employee she was, would respond immediately, even though it was 10 p.m., even though she was off the clock. She thought she was being helpful, showing commitment, but what she was actually doing was setting a boundary, or rather, showing she didn't have one. David took note. Jessica responds immediately, even after hours, even when she doesn't have to, which means she can be pushed, she can be used. She won't say no. A week later, David asked her to handle an additional task. It wasn't her responsibility. It wasn't in her job description. But he framed it casually, like he was just asking for a small favor. And Jessica, wanting to be seen as a team player, said yes. Again, she thought she was being cooperative, helpful, a good employee. But what she was actually doing was failing another test. She showed him she couldn't set limits. She couldn't say no. She couldn't protect her own time or energy. David took note again. Jessica will take on work that isn't hers. She sacrificed herself to avoid conflict, which means I can overload her, and she won't push back. Over the next few months, David kept testing. He'd make comments in meetings to see if Jessica would defend her ideas or back down. She backed down. He'd subtly take credit for her work to see if she'd speak up. She didn't. He'd change plans last minute to see if she'd adapt without complaint. She adapted. Every single time, Jessica thought she was just being professional, being flexible, being easy to work with. But what she was actually doing was showing David exactly how far he could push her. And he pushed further and further, until Jessica was doing the work of 3 people, getting none of the credit, and wondering why she felt so drained and undervalued. Here's what Jessica never understood. Every interaction with David wasn't just an interaction. It was an evaluation, a test. And every time she responded, she was teaching him how to treat her, not with words, with behavior. And behavior is the only language that matters in power dynamics. Now let me ask you something. How many Davids are in your life right now? How many people are testing you without you knowing? Your boss, your partner, your friends, your family. They're all running experiments, seeing what you'll tolerate, what you'll accept, what you'll let slide. And every time you respond, you're giving them data, information about who you are. what you value, what you'll fight for, and what you'll let them take. Here's how these tests work. They're never obvious. They're never formal. They're hidden in normal interactions. Someone asks you for a favor. That's not just a favor. That's a test. Will you say yes, even when it's inconvenient? Will you prioritize their needs over yours? Will you feel guilty if you say no? They're not asking because they need help. They're asking to see if you have boundaries. And if you don't, they'll keep asking and asking and asking until you're doing everything for them and they're doing nothing for you. Someone shows up late to meet you. That's not just poor time management. That's a test. Will you complain? Will you accept it? Will you wait patiently, like your time doesn't matter? They're not late because they forgot. They're late to see how much disrespect you'll tolerate. And if you tolerate it once, they'll do it again and again until being late becomes the norm. And you're the one who always waits, always accommodates, always bends. Someone interrupts you while you're speaking. That's not just rudeness. That's a test. Will you stop talking? Will you let them take over the conversation? Will you shrink back and let them dominate? They're not interrupting because they're excited or passionate. They're interrupting to see if you'll fight for your voice. And if you don't, they'll keep interrupting, keep talking over you, keep making you invisible, until you're just background noise in every conversation. Let me tell you about a man named Robert. Robert had a friend. Let's call him Marcus. Marcus and Robert had been friends for years, but something shifted. Marcus started canceling plans last minute with weak excuses. And Robert, not wanting to be difficult, would just say, "It's fine, no problem, we'll reschedule." He thought he was being understanding, a good friend. But what he was actually doing was teaching Marcus that his time didn't matter, that canceling on Robert had no consequences, that Robert would always be available, always accommodating, always there. So Marcus kept doing it, canceling, rescheduling, showing up late when he did show up, and Robert kept accepting it. Until one day, Robert needed something. He called Marcus. Marcus didn't answer. Robert texted. Marcus didn't respond. And when Marcus finally got back to him 3 days later, his response was casual, distant, like Robert's need didn't matter, like their friendship was one-sided. But he didn't understand why. He didn't realize he'd been teaching Marcus how to treat him with every acceptance, every accommodation, every time he let something slide. Here's the truth: most people never learn. People don't treat you based on who you are. They treat you based on what you allow. And they figure out what you allow by testing you constantly in 100 small, invisible ways. And if you don't recognize the tests, if you don't understand what's happening, you'll fail every single one. Not because you're weak, but because you don't even know you're being evaluated. Think about your own life. Think about the people who take advantage of you, the ones who disrespect your time, the ones who ignore your boundaries, the ones who ask for everything and give nothing. Do you think they just happened to be that way? Do you think they're just selfish or inconsiderate by nature? Or is it possible that you taught them to be that way? That you passed every test they gave you? That you showed them through your responses that you're someone who can be used? Here's what makes this even more dangerous. Most people fail these tests because they think being kind means being weak. They think setting boundaries is rude. They think saying no makes them selfish, so they say yes. They tolerate, they accept, they accommodate, and they think they're being good people. But what they're actually being is easy targets, because the people testing them aren't looking for kindness. They're looking for weakness. And every time you choose kindness over boundaries, you're showing them you're weak. Let me give you another example. A woman named Claire. Claire started dating a man named Eric. In the beginning, Eric was perfect, attentive, respectful, thoughtful. But then the tests started. Small things. He'd make a joke at her expense in front of friends. Just a little comment, nothing major. And Claire, not wanting to cause a scene, laughed it off. Test passed. Eric learned Claire won't defend herself in public. She'll take disrespect to avoid conflict. Then Eric started checking her phone, just casually, while they were sitting together. And Claire, not wanting to seem like she had something to hide, let him. Test passed. Eric learned Claire won't protect her privacy. She'll give up her boundaries to avoid suspicion. Then Eric started criticizing small things about her. Her clothes, her friends, her habits. And Claire, wanting to be a good partner, started changing, started adapting, started becoming what he wanted instead of who she was. Test passed. Eric learned Claire will sacrifice herself to maintain the relationship. She shrank to make him comfortable. And over time, Claire became someone she didn't recognize. Someone who walked on eggshells. Someone who second-guessed everything. Someone who had given away so much of herself that there was almost nothing left, and she couldn't understand how it happened. How she went from confident to insecure, from independent to dependent, from herself to a version of herself designed to please someone else. But it happened the same way it always happens. One test at a time. One boundary crossed at a time. One moment of weakness accepted at a time. You're being tested right now, in ways you don't see, by people you trust. And every response you give is teaching them who you are, what you'll accept, what you'll fight for, and what you'll let them take. The question is, are you passing these tests, or are you teaching people that you're someone who can be pushed, used, and discounted? Here's what most people don't understand about these tests. They're not random. They're strategic. The people testing you aren't doing it consciously most of the time. It's instinctive. Humans are wired to evaluate each other, to find out who's strong and who's weak, who has power and who doesn't, who can be controlled and who can't. And they do this through behavior, through patterns, through seeing what you do when you're pushed. And here's the part that hurts. The people closest to you test you the most. Your partner tests you to see if you'll prioritize them over yourself. Your friends test you to see if you'll be there when it's inconvenient. Your boss tests you to see if you'll work beyond your limits without asking for more. Your family tests you to see if you'll sacrifice your needs for theirs. And every single time you fail one of these tests, you lose a little bit of respect, a little bit of value, a little bit of yourself. Let me show you how this plays out in real life. There's a pattern that happens in almost every relationship. Romantic, professional, friendship. It doesn't matter. It's the same. In the beginning, both people are testing boundaries, seeing what the other will accept. And whoever sets their boundaries first, whoever shows they won't be pushed, wins. Not in a cruel way, but in a respect way. They become the person whose time matters, whose needs are considered, whose voice is heard. And the other person, they become the accommodator, the flexible one, the one who adjusts. And once that dynamic is set, it's almost impossible to change. Think about it. In your relationships, who decides when you meet? Who picks the restaurant? Who ends the conversation? Who apologizes first? Who compromises? If it's always you, that's not a coincidence. That's the result of tests you didn't know you were taking. Tests you failed by being too agreeable, too understanding, too willing to put someone else first. Here's a story about a man named Thomas. Thomas had a business partner, someone he'd known for years. They started a company together, equal partners, 50-50 split. But from day one, his partner started testing. He'd miss meetings and see if Thomas would cover. Thomas covered. He'd make decisions without consulting Thomas and see if Thomas would push back. Thomas didn't. He'd take credit for ideas they developed together and see if Thomas would correct him. Thomas stayed silent. Every single test, Thomas failed. Not because he was weak, but because he thought he was being a good partner, keeping the peace, being flexible, not making things difficult. But here's what happened. Over time, Thomas's partner stopped seeing him as an equal. He saw him as support staff, as someone whose opinions didn't matter, whose contributions could be minimized, whose 50% was really more like 30, and Thomas felt it. The disrespect, the dismissiveness, the imbalance. But he didn't know how to fix it because he'd spent months teaching his partner exactly how to treat him. And once you teach someone you're weak, it's almost impossible to convince them you're strong. So what do? How do you pass these tests when you don't even know you're being tested? Here's the answer. You stop trying to be liked. You stop trying to be easy. You stop trying to avoid conflict, because those instincts, those desires to be agreeable and accommodating, those are exactly what make you fail. The tests aren't designed to find nice people. They're designed to find people with boundaries, people with self-respect, people who value themselves enough to say no. Let me be very clear. Saying no is not rude, it's not selfish, it's not mean, it's necessary. It's how you teach people that you have limits, that your time has value, that you're not infinitely flexible, that there's a line they can't cross. And when you say no, when you set that boundary, you're not pushing people away. You're actually earning their respect. Because people respect boundaries. They respect people who have standards, who know what they're worth, who won't compromise themselves just to keep the peace. Here's what this looks like practically. Someone asks you to do something that's inconvenient. You don't say yes and resent them later. You say, I can't do that, but I can do this instead. You're not being difficult. You're being honest. You're showing them that your time and energy have limits. And if they respect you, they'll accept that. And if they don't, if they push back or guilt you or try to manipulate you, then you know exactly who they are. And you adjust accordingly. Someone disrespects you, makes a joke at your expense, interrupts you, dismisses you. You don't laugh it off. You don't ignore it. You address it calmly, directly. You say, I didn't appreciate that, or let me finish, or that's not okay. You're not starting a fight. You're setting a standard. You're showing them that disrespect has consequences, that you won't tolerate it. And if they're worth keeping in your life, they'll adjust. And if they're not, they'll reveal themselves. Someone cancels on you last minute. You don't say, it's fine. You don't reschedule immediately. You acknowledge it and you pull back. You show them through your actions that their behavior has impact, that your time matters, that you're not always available. And if they value you, they'll notice, they'll adjust. And if they don't, you have your answer about what you mean to them. Here's the key. These tests never stop. People will keep testing you for your entire life. But once you understand what's happening, once you see the pattern, you can start passing them, not by being aggressive, not by being cold, but by having boundaries, by respecting yourself enough to expect others to respect you too, by understanding that how people treat you is a direct reflection of what you've taught them to expect. Let me tell you what happened to Jessica. Remember her, the woman whose manager kept testing her. Eventually, Jessica burned out. She couldn't sustain the workload, the lack of recognition, the constant overextension. So she left. She found a new job. And at that new job, she did something different. When her new manager sent her a late-night email, she waited until the next morning to respond. When he asked her to take on extra work, she asked if something could be removed from her plate first. When someone tried to take credit for her idea, she spoke up, politely but firmly. She started passing the tests, and you know what happened? She got more respect, more recognition, better treatment, not because she became mean or difficult, but because she showed people she valued herself. And when you value yourself, others have no choice but to value you to size. So here's your warning. You're being tested right now by everyone around you. And the results of those tests are determining how people treat you, how much they respect you, how much they value you, and whether they see you as someone to be honored or someone to be used. The choice is yours. You can keep failing by being too nice, too accommodating, too afraid of conflict. Or you can start passing by, setting boundaries, respecting yourself, and understanding that the only way to be treated well is to demand it through your actions. This isn't about becoming cold. It's about becoming strong. It's about understanding that kindness without boundaries is weakness, that flexibility without limits is exploitation, that being understanding doesn't mean being a doormat. The world doesn't reward nice people. It rewards people who respect themselves, people who know their worth, people who pass the tests. Start today. The next time someone pushes your boundary, don't let it slide. The next time someone asks you to compromise yourself, say no. The next time someone disrespects you, address it. Not aggressively, not emotionally, but clearly, firmly, with the calm confidence of someone who knows their value. And watch what happens. Watch how the dynamic shifts. Watch how people start treating you differently. Not because you changed who you are, but because you stopped pretending your boundaries don't exist. This is the psychological warning. Subscribe if you're ready to see the tests, to understand the game, to stop being used and start being respected. Most people will keep failing. They'll keep wondering why they're always the one who gives, the one who accommodates, the one who gets overlooked. But you're not most people. You see it. Now, the tests, the patterns, the truth. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to keep failing? Or are you going to start passing? The tests are happening right now. How you respond to this moment, to this information, is itself a test. Will you ignore it and go back to being easy? Or will you take it seriously and start demanding the respect you deserve? Your choice. But choose carefully, because the people in your life are watching, and they're taking notes.